just because you didn't get the job does not mean that's a bad thing for you. That may be a good thing for you. So I always caution candidates that when I'm even, especially me, and I can't speak for all recruiters or TA professionals, but when we're trying to hire, we're trying to keep both parties' interests in mind, right? And I've had this many times, and I speak on it, but I've had it where a candidate's personality doesn't match where they would be working. Hey everyone, it's James Callender here with my co-host Bradley Jeffcoat. We're bringing you today's first episode of HRview, a workplace guide podcast, and we're very excited to be bringing this to you. Bradley and I are going to dive into really the why behind this podcast and what created or what started this project. And then we're also going to look forward at some of the things that we'll be discussing in this episode, future episodes, some of the amazing guests that we've invited and that will be joining us to talk about their experiences in the professional world, in the business world, and HR and other disciplines around business. Also, candidates explore some of the things behind the scenes that you may not see, and I think for me and Bradley, feel free to jump in here, but I think that's what I'm probably most excited about is really peeling back a lot of the things that you don't get to see very often.
Especially from the side of HR, normally looks like the bad guys. We get this bad rap that we just hire and fire people, and that's not
Yeah.
what we're doing all day. So I'm excited to show everybody what the real HR does.
The real HR. That's a fun way to put it. So, Bradley, how did you get in HR?
So nobody really wakes up and says, "Hey, I want to write policies and enforce them for the rest of my life." So I actually wanted to be a nurse, and so I was in college. It was my first year. I was about 19 years old, and my mom told me I had to go and get a job. And so I was a nursing major at a junior college, about 45 minutes from my hometown, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get a job in an office because they'll give me life skills. And I went to a employer. I started there whenever I was 19 years old, and they put me in an HR position, just a general HR assistant role, pretty entry level. I didn't know anything about HR. I was a glorified assistant. And I was like, you know what? I actually kind of like this. Like, it gives me a good mix between people and policy. There's enough structure to where I'm not just pushing paper every day, but there's consistency to it as well, and I get to interact with people all day, every day, whether I realize that or not. And so I changed my major. I switched colleges to the local university from a junior college. And luckily, within the past 2 years, I graduated from Stephen F. Austin. They implemented a human resources management degree or degree, and I changed my major to human resources management. I gained a great professor throughout that who basically fed life into me through HR, and we're still in close contact today. And I'm hoping to get him on the show or podcast. I don't even know what to call this.
Just a shout out
Um,
there. So if you're
Shout out
listening, there's your
Dr.
formal
Cox.
invite.
He was great. He still is very, very helpful whenever I need him. So I think it's part of leadership why I got here, and the people interaction and having great role models and mentors throughout my college career that really landed me into HR.
Yeah, it's funny because I never saw myself going into HR. I never saw myself getting into this line of work, and now here I reflect back on the last going on 13 years now. I started in financial services really. You could actually say customer service from my starting point as a recruiter. That's how I got into HR, was customer service. I was doing recruiting for a call center. Very high volume, high turnover, really difficult job. And I think my wife would probably agree that I have this level of, I don't stress about a lot of things, and I reflect back to that first recruiting gig because I remember we had a site of 500 plus people, and we had like 180% turnover at 500 plus people, which means we were going through what is that? eight, 900 people a year, something like that, through that site, which was crazy. And I remember supporting that site for about 6 months, and I would get very stressed out because I was having to fill classes of 25 to 27 people a week to keep up with attrition. And I remember thinking, God, I would get sick, and just like every night I'd be 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night trying to call people. And I remember thinking, like, I can either control it or I can't. And I could not control that. And I really shifted how I recruited for that market and that company. And I made a decision, and I don't know if it just stuck or what. It was like, I'm not going to get stressed out about the things that I can't control anymore. But I was like, I'm not going to make decisions based on things that I can't control anymore. So I started to reshift that, and then I went from recruiting to supporting a financial services location as an HR manager. Left that financial services group, did that for about 2 or 3 years, and it was it was interesting because it was my first HR job in terms of a level of ownership for a facility. And looking back, it was really just a reactive job. I sat around waiting for problems and waiting for stuff to hit the fan, and was like, okay, let me do an investigation now. Let me do some interviews. And that's not at all what HR was. And I got into manufacturing, and still without a lot of HR guidance. I was running a smaller site and overseeing safety and quality as well. And then after that, that was a small regional manufacturer. But after that, I got in a large global manufacturer of packaging, and it really shifted how I looked at things. Because, and I tell people all the time to this day, when you get into high level manufacturing, there's a level of fast paced, and then there's a level of manufacturing fast paced, and everything is lean, everything is quick, fast, and in a hurry when you're doing things. And I learned so much between those two manufacturing companies, and here I am now supporting construction. And I love what I do every day. But when I go back to college, and I told this story earlier with one of our future guests, but when I go back to college, I went in undeclared. I had no idea. I didn't even know what human resources was. And I remember going in after a couple years, and I was like, I'm going to do management. Just put me in management. So they put me in entrepreneurship, and I was like, did that for a year, and it's like, that's not really degree worthy. And so I stopped by the dean's office one day and was like, hey, I want to change over to human resources. And someone in the back perked up and made the comment, why would you ever want to do that? That's just sitting in the back office and never be seen. And I'd never thought about it. And I was like, well, that's not who I am. I don't want to do that. I don't want to just be a paper pusher or pencil pusher, and not have any implications on things. And I made a decision at that time to not be that person. I wanted to be proactive, and I wanted to be supportive, and I wanted to be a business partner and in the business. And I've learned a lot about how to do that in manufacturing. And one of the things around this program is the why. And that's what I really want to focus on with our viewers, and help you understand the why behind a lot of the things that happen the day in and day out in the business world. And really, I see a lot of people looking from an HR perspective, right? Why did that policy get pushed out? That was so dumb. Or why can't they give me a better raise? Or why can't I get more money for this? Or why did I not get that job? Or why did I not get that promotion? Why did I, all these things? And I've made a very conscious effort over the past 2 years to start focusing on the why. And Bradley, with that, like, tell us your why. Like, why do you do the things you do each day?
So with me being, I'm 26 years old. I've been in HR for a little under 8 years now. Me and James work together all day, every day, but I am very driven by benefits and people. And so my why would probably be that I want to help families and build those relationships with people, because you never truly know. You said that somebody back in that HR office or at your dean's office said, why would you want to sit in a back office? We are not the back office. You see so many people coming in and out of your office all day long, building
But HR
relationships.
gets that rep though.
Yes.
They get that bad reputation of that's who they are, sit in the back office.
Yeah, we may sit in the back, but we're getting visited and we are talking to people and implementing policies that could possibly change lives and just building relationships with people and getting to know their families because we're so involved in the start to the finish. Like as soon as you're hired on, we're recruiting you. We're the first people you meet at this company, and we start the culture in that with this company as soon as we do that phone screen with you. And so I think it's about building relationships for me and being a support person for people. And then, like I said, I love benefits. I've loved it since college, thanks to Dr. Cox. And I just love the implementation of helping people and helping them understand what's offered to them and making sure that they're utilizing all of those plans to their full advantage.
One of the things we talk about in future episodes, and even if you follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn, you'll see in some of our reels we talk a lot about culture and fostering culture. But there's this misconception that culture is created by HR, and it's not. It's culture is pushed by the people that you're interacting with daily, and honestly, HR is a small snippet of that culture because, like Bradley mentioned, we only get usually a few days with a candidate from start to finish. And then the rest of the time they're spending with leaders in the field. And that's where culture is really driven. So HR can have this idea, this playbook, if you will, but nobody can push culture throughout an organization better than the day-to-day leaders, the ones that are actually frontline, middle managers, operations leaders, whoever it may be. Those are the ones that have to push the culture from top down, right? And so there's no way to just say, oh, it's HR's responsibility. So I think one of the things that has come up a lot is about candidates, right? And so I find it really interesting. I had this candidate the other day that reached out, or we had gone through applications, and I looked at probably 200 plus applications for a job, and the candidate had pretty good matches for the job, but out of 200 candidates, there were a lot of good quality candidates. So when you have that many, there's this process of narrowing candidates down to, final 5 to 10, because at the end of the day, and we talked about this with a guest or another guest earlier, when you've got thousands or hundreds or thousands or whatever of candidates, you're getting 6 to 10 seconds of resume review time. And it's easy to sit there and say, hey, that's not fair. You're only looking at 10 seconds of my resume. And the reality is that if I've got 8 or 10 requisitions and I've got 100 new applicants each day for those requisitions, you're talking about a lot of time just looking at applications. And we haven't even started interviewing yet. So if I've got 10 requisitions, 100 new applications a day, and that's not unrealistic. We're in a really tight job market right now. So, those of you that are out there that are unemployed, have been unemployed and looking for, an entry level career, mid level or senior level career, we hear it. We hear it all the time that it's difficult out there. And that's something we will dive into here on the podcast. But, this candidate responded after we had sent the unfortunate letter of, hey, we've decided to move forward with other candidates. The candidate responded with some pretty harsh words. And you know what? Maybe warranted. I think sometimes those frustrations come off from candidates, but there were a lot of things that candidate had that were good, but then there were a lot of things that candidate had that did not meet the expectations of that role. And then the other parts, the intangibles, the salary and the location and things like that go into it as well. So when you start adding all these factors in, it wasn't the right opportunity for a candidate. And I talk about it on some of the reels and in future episodes as well, that all declines, just because you didn't get the job does not mean that's a bad thing for you. That may be a good thing for you. So I always caution candidates that when I'm even, especially me, and I can't speak for all recruiters or TA professionals, but when we're trying to hire, we're trying to keep both parties' interests in mind, right? And I've had this many times, and I speak on it, but I've had it where a candidate's personality doesn't match where they would be working. And I get the candidates that come back and say, oh, well, you shouldn't hire, or see it on LinkedIn, or you shouldn't make decisions based on personality, and that's not fair. And you're not wrong, maybe it's not fair, but let's play devil's advocate for a minute and say I do hire someone whose personality doesn't fit with the other three people on the team. How do you think your experience is going to go the next, or the first 30, 60, 90 days in that role?
Yeah. So I've been seeing that all over my LinkedIn lately. It must be having to do with all of the applications and job postings that are
Yeah.
available. But like you said, just because you're getting told no about a position now doesn't mean that it's something to take personally. There's opportunities out there that will better align with you and your personality and your personal culture and your morals that may be the next yes. You truly never know. And so I think a lot, especially the college grads, they just want to get into a door and then they figure out 6 months later, oh, I actually don't like this place at all. And so they're stuck in a position because they stopped looking for a job. And so I think especially with young adults, you kind of take it personal. And then in the HR world, we know that it's not personal because we do have to dive in deeper than just what's on your resume. We have to figure out if you're a good personality fit. We have to figure out if you're in a good location for us because remote work is so popular now. And some employers just don't do remote work.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, right? And I think that's the big, if I'm a candidate, that's my biggest takeaway, is that we're never trying to hurt anyone. That's not our goal. Our goal is try to make sure that everybody gets what they're needing in this situation, and a lot of things go into that, right? And so it's about job expectations, qualifications. So we talk KSA's, knowledge, skills, and abilities, but there's qualifications, geographic, finances. Maybe they're looking for a salary that's way above what a company's willing to pay for it, and so we're
And then
going to spend some.
relocating from another
Yep.
area. So they
Oh,
may
that
be
too.
from Atlanta. Atlanta is
Yep.
way more expensive. We're in North
Yeah.
Louisiana. And so obviously the cost of living is significantly different. So they may be wanting a higher salary, but they don't know that the cost of living is so much cheaper down here. So
Yeah.
you have to create realistic expectations within those job postings just so you can reach your right audience as well.
Yeah. Well, and another thing, speaking of job postings, somebody came to me the other day, and one thing that's very unfortunate, and it's part of the why behind this, because there's so many programs and companies and efforts out there that would take a dollar real fast from you, right? So if you want me to review your resume, sure, send it over, send me $50 and I'll review it for you. Or hey, I can do some career coaching and get you, help you land that opportunity for $500 or $50 or whatever, right? Depending on the level in the organization. And unfortunately, you know, when I'm a candidate, the longer I go without a job, the more vulnerable I become and the more desperate I become. And $50 doesn't seem like a lot of money, and it's sure I'll pay $50. I'll pay $500 now to get a job. I'm so desperate, I'll give my last $500 to help me land a job. And there's no promise, there's no guarantee of a job that might get you an interview, right? And so there are great services that help, but I want to do that for free. I want to do those things for free. And that's what Bradley and I are here for. That's the whole intention of this project, is to help candidates, help employees. Maybe I'm trying to get a promotion at work, or I want to grow, or how can I get to the next level, or I'm having this problem with my coworker or my manager, or I can't get through to this person, I can't get through to that person. What should I do? I don't know all the answers, right? I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have those things, but what I do have is a lot of experience dealing with leaders and dealing with employees in the organization and providing guidance to help people get there. And I see so many times people want to get to a certain level in an organization, but they don't want to put in the things that are required to get there. And it's not time. I'm here to tell you that time is not what always gets you there. Okay? The organizations that time gets someone there, that's a problem. It's experience gets someone there. And effort, experience, and effort, and the things. And but there's a lot of subcategories that go into those, right? Effort could look like learning a new responsibility, learning a new task, getting better at that task, getting more experience at that task, getting a certification at that task. There's a lot of things that go into that effort, right? And so it's not just show up to work. And I see that all the time. And it's not just I work hard. I get that one. There's a great article I read the other day, and that really resonates because it was about time or hard work is not the same thing as good performance. And I had this issue with a leader one time where we're doing end of year reviews, and in HR we do a lot of times what's called a calibration session. And so what that means is I have employees across the organization that have a performance review. And that might be 10 employees, it could be 50, it could be 500 employees. But there might be 30 leaders that go into that calibration session. Briley may be a very strict leader, and she may be very strict on how she provides scores and assessments on an employee. And then I may be over here, I may just be passing out perfect scores left and right because you came to work all the time and you seemed busy while you were here. And that's what I had. I had a leader that did that. The leader just had a handful of people on their team, and they always were busy. So they were phenomenal. You don't understand. These are the best employees I've ever had. And my argument there was, no, they aren't. They're busy employees, and that I'm not saying they're not good employees. Don't get that confused. I'm not saying that there weren't good employees because they were, but they were not immaculate employees. They weren't highest of high performing employees. They were good employees, and there's nothing. Please don't get this confused. There's nothing wrong with being a good employee. Nothing. And I used to have this problem with getting a meets expectation score at the end of a year. There's nothing wrong with that. You're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, and you're doing them good, and you're a hard worker, and you're reliable. Those are great qualities and great characteristics. So I can't stress the value of that. But that doesn't mean coming to work, working hard at your job, and being good at it does not make you a high performer. Okay. So, and what I look at when I start differentiating high performers are those that are going above and beyond, right? I have this level of expectation. I need you to get reports out every week. I need you to have this information done every week. I need you to have this done, that done, right? And then you take that and you do those things, but then you come to me and say, hey, James, I'm going to go help over here as well. Hey, James, I see there's an opportunity at this. I'm going to make sure by the next week I have that fixed too, because that's a problem. I see that being a problem in the organization. And then, oh, you see that? And I know what our watchers are going to say, our audience is going to say, or you just want us to work more for free. That's not the case, right? I'm not saying you have to do that. I've never said you have to do that, because if you go back about 60 seconds on this clip, I just said being a good employee is not bad. Meeting expectations is a great score. So if you want to meet expectations every day, you're going to maintain that job and you're going to be in it forever. But
Yeah,
those of
I
you that are
think,
coming back saying, hey, I want to grow, I just told you how to grow.
yeah, me and James have had a lot of conversations lately about being a reactive HR partner. And I lived in that culture for a very, very long time. And so I became accustomed to just solving problems once they arise instead of going and finding preventative measures. And so I think a lot of growth comes from a good leader. And so within the past 8 months, which is how long I've been with James, I figured out that I was in a culture where my leader did not feed into me personally or with business development needs. So I've learned a lot over the last 8 months that I've been with James that I wasn't a proactive HR partner. I was reactive and I was waiting on things and issues to fall into my lap. And where I'm growing within that field is we talked last week about what I needed to do and how my role looks over the next year. And I have to progressively and make a conscious effort of going out and building myself. That way I can get those meets expectations and beyond on my next performance review. So, James, do you have any examples of a bad leader or a good leader that you've encountered in the past that has kind of shaped your HR future and how you do or don't want to act?
Yeah, I tell people my first job out of college was probably one of the worst jobs I've ever had. It was at a terrible company and a terrible leader. And ouch, that really hurts, right? I don't. It's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know. And I don't know if that was the situation here for my leader at the time, if they just didn't know what alternative methods, alternative options to being a good leader or how to be a good leader out there. Maybe they should have found HRview a workplace guide a lot sooner, or maybe we should have founded it a lot sooner. But the company was, it did things in ways that I would never do things from a company perspective. The morals were questionable at best. Ethics were horrible, and I was only there for a few months, and I had to find my way out very fast. I had to get out of the organization, but I also had a leader that didn't do anything themselves. They didn't help develop me, and part of the role, I had 12 months to develop in that role. If I did not develop and develop the way I needed to develop, I would be demoted or fired. And you've got 12 months to do that. And I'm 4 months into the role, and there were development modules that you had to go through, and you could only do them at work because of the system they used. And I was 4 months in and hadn't completed any modules because my leader did not give me the opportunity to do any modules. And it was a problem because I was like, I'm not going to have a job because I'm not progressing. I was one of the top sellers at the company for the last 2 months consecutively, and I watched they relocated another peer from another location that had been with the company about 10 months, and they relocated them to our branch. And after 2 months from the other branch, the district manager came in one day and pulled that employee to the back. Went 10, 15 minutes later, went 10, 15 minutes go by, the employee comes from the back and walks out, and we all had a desk. The employee walks past the desk and goes and sits at the cash register at the front. And I was like, this is really strange. I don't know what's going on. And so, like, time goes by, lunch rocks on, and they go to lunch. And I went to the colleague and I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, she's crying. I just got demoted to cashier. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, yesterday was my anniversary, and I didn't meet the expectation, so I got demoted to cashier. And I was like, this place is something else. And my manager quite literally sat around and put on makeup half the day.
Oh my
And it was
gosh.
so frustrating. An underperforming location. I didn't get the development, the personal development, the professional development that I wanted. And that is probably my number one example of toughest company and toughest leader to ever be a part of. And I don't, and but I say it was my most valuable learning experience because I learned who not to be as a leader, which is I don't put on makeup very often anyway. So I knew
Oh
that
no,
I
we don't.
probably wouldn't have that. Shh, I probably wouldn't have that problem. But from a company, I was like, I never want to work for that kind of company again either.
Yeah,
Never. What
we
about you?
both. Mine would probably be, I haven't held many jobs. I was with one company for a very, very long time. Again, I started there whenever I was 19 years old, and I took a year sabbatical, year and a half sabbatical from them, and I came back, and I knew that the workplace was toxic, and I would say that would has been. I'm like you said, I'm so grateful for the opportunity because it brought me into HR. That is why I do what I do. But over the years, like I questioned, why am I in HR? Because if this is how HR is, I don't want to be a part of this. And luckily, I have great mentors and great people around me just from networking and meeting other people at events, and that they were like, no, Bradley, that's not normal. That's not normal how HR is. And I was like, okay, well, I had a similar boss, and I don't know what she did, truthfully, because it was one day a policy was this, and then the next day, oh no, I didn't say that. I told you to do it this way. Well, I have it in writing that you told me to do it this way. And so, like you said, sometimes private companies they can be unethical because nobody's watching them. And then you have the instance of the culture and the leadership. While HR doesn't have a large hold on implementing it throughout the company, there's still people who contribute to that culture, and a good leader will develop you as a person as well as professionally. And I actually got curious the other day, and I still have friends that work there, and I was like, I'm just going to look up and see what their core values are. Because over who we work for, our core values are who we are, and we live by those. And they don't even have core values. So I was like, you know what? That really makes sense. But you don't know what you don't know. I started there whenever I was 19, and I stayed until I was 20, 26. And so it was a long 7 years of toxicity. And I know, like you said, I know what I don't want to do for my team later on down the road. And so like, I'm grateful for the opportunity because it introduced me to what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I also wish I would have started out in a very healthy culture.
Yeah. I had, speaking of healthy culture, first off, I want to make it very clear that Briley, if you're not reading between the lines, Briley's saying that I'm her second worst leader she's ever had.
I'm also only my second boss.
Well,
So
hey, numbers don't lie. But I had my first real HR job. I had a very challenging micromanager boss that had created a very toxic work environment for everyone there. Everyone from floor level all the way up to senior management, and everyone. It was like this leading by fear, and I hated that. I absolutely hate. I don't want
I don't
anyone
want
to
to walk
fear
in
me.
and know if I'm going to get yelled at or if it's going to be a
Yeah.
good day.
I don't want, and I've got a great story about a bathroom trip that I'm going to share on a future episode about light bulbs and bathrooms, and it will blow your mind to hear this leader. But we're going to wrap up. But before we wrap up, Bradley, tell me you mentioned it earlier, and we talked with a guest earlier about it as well. Networking. What does networking mean, and why? Who should be doing it, and why?
Everybody should be doing it. If you're in high school, start networking. I truthfully, I didn't start until I was in college, late in my college career. And even within that previous company that I worked for so long, I didn't have the opportunity to go and network like I do now. Talk to your leaders, talk to anybody who wants to go network with you. If you have a coworker who is also young in their career, then just go to I know a lot of towns in my hometown, we have a Live After Five. There's a ton of chamber events here in North Louisiana. And they truly are amazing for opening up doors and creating opportunities for yourself, whether that be a new job or getting a customer for the company that you work for. You truly never know. I think networking is the biggest advantage to professional and personal development over the last 8 months, because James is awesome. I get to network a ton and I love it. It is probably my favorite part of the job because I'm getting to professionally grow and personally grow. Your relationships with people in the town truly do matter whenever it comes to a professional career and making sure that you're successful. And so I would recommend anybody to go out and network, even if you're a mom, a stay-at-home mom, and you don't actually do anything but get to take care of your kids. Still go out and get to know people, because you don't know, in 5 years you might want to go back to work, and then you'll be able to phone that friend and say, hey, I was actually wondering if y'all were hiring, and that may get you a foot in the door.
I can't tell you how many deals, business deals, and also how many senior level positions get filled in an organization that never hit a careers website or an applicant tracking
Exactly.
system or hey, I've been having this kind of need, you should come work with me. Like that happens all the time. And I got a great example. I have an individual. So Jordan, if you're out there listening, I don't know if you are or not, I think Jordan is one of the first college students that has ever reached out to me for just random solicitation of, hey, would you mentor me? The individual left Louisiana Tech, went to another college, wrapping up their academic and athletic career at another college, and reached out and said, hey, could we connect? I would love to just pick your brain. Absolutely phenomenal. I would
Yes.
love that, and I think it's so valuable. Like you don't see that. You don't see
Mm-hmm.
someone at that age reaching out to a business professional, an expert, and I've got a conversation. So, Dr. Cox, this is your second formal invite on the first episode, but I've got another conversation that I'm looking forward to having with one of my prior professors that I would love to dive into that. Like, how do we get people at that age, students, upcoming graduates, recent graduates, to do a better job of proactively soliciting. I think soliciting and not solicitating.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we get that group to do a better job of proactively networking? Just go have conversations, and it doesn't take a lot. Once a month, 30 minutes a month, go meet with people that are like-minded or potential peers, even if it's college uh, peers, right? Because they're going to go get jobs too. Who do you think is
Exactly.
going to be one of your biggest advocates when you guys are all in the job market and they need another partner in their firm or in their organization? Or, hey, I have an old friend that was really good. Networking is so valuable. So there you have it, guys. Our first episode of HRview, a workplace guide. We're so excited to be launching this project and kicking things off. Be sure to join us. We're going to have this coming out every 2 weeks. So every other Friday, we're going to be launching episodes. This one will come out on Friday, November 14th. And then be sure to join us 2 weeks from today on Friday, November 28th, as we talk with Justin Barksdale of Barksdale Safety Solutions. You'll be able to get some snippets and some insights into some of the conversations we've had here on our Facebook and social and LinkedIn social media pages. Our podcast, the full versions, will be released on YouTube as a podcast, but we'll drop some snippets and links into social media through LinkedIn and Facebook. Always watch our episodes, the full episodes. I know Justin will be giving some things away, so some opportunity for our listeners, our watchers, to grab some amazing
Personal
what how
and
do,
professional growth.
there you go. There it is. That's what I'm personal and professional growth. Great opportunities there. So be sure you watch that episode as we dive into a lot of things leadership. We talk a lot about leadership, different mechanisms of leadership, how safety impacts our lives, focusing on safety leadership. You don't want to miss that. Be sure to join us in 2 weeks. Next Friday, we'll launch that as well. So until then, follow us on our social medias, LinkedIn and Facebook, as we release new content on a regular basis. And we're looking forward to launching this project and helping each and every one of you grow both personally and professionally. Until then, for Bradley Jeffcoat, I'm James Callender. Thanks for tuning in to HRview, a workplace guide podcast, as we deliver amazing content on a regular basis.